Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Countless Vlogcast. I'm your host, Justin Rich, aka Countless Riches. My guest today is writer and teacher Kim Purcell. How are you today, Kim?
I'm great.
So, tell us about yourself. I know you're a teacher and writer, but what kind of teacher and writer are you?
So I teach fiction and mostly novel writing, actually, to kids, to adults. I started out as way back as an ESL teacher, and then I moved into I became the curriculum director of Right Girl in LA, which is quite famous now because of the incredible Amanda Gorman, and who was our inaugural poet. And when I was there, one of the biggest things that we did as we were, building up Right Girl from the beginning is to develop a system in which kids would be inspired to write, because they would, through multi-sensory input, through actual objects, through music, through movement, instead of just the boring prompt that we would get on the page, we always added extra elements, and this inspired creativity and allowed a kind of freedom, and help people access their deeper voice. But also it was very trauma informed, low pressure, and really all about, speaking your truth. And while I was teaching that, I was also writing my own fiction, and in the course of teaching fiction and inspiring kids, because that's really my heart, helping kids access who they are, and through creativity, overcoming the challenges that they might have. In teaching that, I found too that I was able to reach that raw area within myself, and was constantly working on novels at the same time. And then ended up writing my first novel, which is Trafficked. And it's a story about a girl who comes to America from Moldova, thinking she's going to get to go to school and just be a part-time nanny, but in fact ends up becoming enslaved in a house and unable to leave, working 16-hour days. And this was based on countless research. I interviewed many people within the United States, but I also went to Moldova and interviewed many people there to see, well, even though the story takes place in Los Angeles. So, because before I became a teacher, I was a journalist, and I found that, journalism and teaching they're very similar. You're communicating and you're trying to share what you know, and also inspire people to learn, and inspire people to want, in journalism, broadcast journalism in particular, which is what I studied, you're encouraging people, you're giving them part of the picture, and then hopefully through inspiring a passion within them, then they go off and learn more on their own. And so teaching and journalism, actually, they didn't end up being so different. But what I love about both of them is that you really connect with people, and you connect with the hearts of people, and that's how you get really the best out of them.
Awesome. So, when you first got started, when you first started to publish a book, what was your feeling of that too? After teaching your first book you wanted to publish, what was the feeling around that?
Well, when I first when my first novel was published, I had written it with two little kids at home. And because, some of us we don't reach our dreams before we have kids. And but I believe very much in pushing forward and continuing on, and while you have kids. So it was a really cool thing when my first novel was published, and just having my kids come to my book launch, and all my friends and family there to say, hey, you spent a long time toward this dream and you did it. And for my kids to see that, yes, if you keep working toward it, you can do it too. And I think that initial experience is what has driven me. Well, first of all, I wrote another book called This Is Not a Love Letter. And it's a story about told by the girlfriend of a boy who goes missing, and she tries to figure out what might have happened. And he's a Black kid in a small white mill town, and she thinks that possibly he's been the victim of something terrible. And so the police aren't doing enough to find out what's happened, and so she heads off trying to figure out what happened herself. And for me, that story was very personal because I had a couple situations in which people have gone missing. Mm. And so I drew upon the pain of that. And but of course, wrote it all entirely fictional. And having gone through writing that book and publishing it, it became one of NPR's best novels of 2018. And Trafficked 2 is taught in schools around the country. Wow. And having written that also with kids, I just really understand that I've written before I had kids and during kids, and it's a lot tougher to keep pursuing your goals while you're trying to raise kids, especially if they have any kind of challenges themselves. And so I wanted to help other moms do the same. So I started this mom writer workshop, and it's all around how do you write a novel with kids, and how do you use your kids to kind of help inspire them. You inspire your kids, and then you inspire yourself, and so it goes on,
That's awesome. So when you're writing this heavy material too, like how do you get through that too? I know it could be tough writing about trafficking, kidnapping, and all that going missing too. How do you get through that to finish it too? I know it must be heavy when you're writing it.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of funny because when people meet me, in fact, my first agent, when she met me after she'd read Trafficked, and she was like, "Oh, this woman's got to be pretty dark, pretty, And then she meets me, and I'm pretty happy, joyful person, at least on the outside. So my darkness can come out in my fiction, and yes, I do use difficult struggles within my own life. And sometimes that can be triggering. And I think, honestly, the very best work in every field, in music, in art, in fiction, it's when you tap into that rawness inside of yourself and you let yourself feel the pain, feel the fear, and then you deliver it onto the page. If you don't feel it, it doesn't come across. And that's why, I think most people understand that with music. When you hear something just that moves you, a piece of music that hits you, it's because they're feeling it too, Yeah,
definitely feel that too. As a writer myself, I definitely feel that too. So let's talk a little about the Mom's Writers Workshop too. How's that been going since you started? What year did you start that again?
Well, I started it in LA live with women in LA, and then I'm living in Brooklyn during the pandemic, and so I thought, well, I'm going to open it up to people online, and see if we can spread out to people all over the country and connect them and say, yeah, you can write, you really can. And your kids can encourage your dreams instead of, you just encouraging their dreams. And so I saw this unique opportunity in the pandemic to help moms everywhere. Now, of course, then as I was helping moms everywhere, there were other people who were like, hey, Kim, I'm not a mom and I'm feeling kind of left out. And so then I thought, I mean, everything I'm teaching is about really how can we be efficient creators on top of, hitting that, core part of ourselves and accessing our voice. How can we be efficient so we can actually get our projects finished? So then I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to have a busy writer workshop too, to kind of open it up to people, of all ages, men, women, parents, not. I just want to completely open it up. And so I'm doing that once a month. And right now, that workshop is free. It's just an hour long. I keep it short, and I'm doing it online. And eventually, I will charge. But right now, I'm just loving giving. I guess I'm just loving giving this feeling of storytelling joy to as many people as I can. And so that's on the last Thursday of every month. Mm-hmm. And eventually I'll turn it into a course, and I'll probably charge for it. But what awesome. I love is just how I think we all really need a lot more joy right now. It's been a really tough year. And so whatever I can do to make people feel like, okay, maybe I'll do something creative. Maybe that would help.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yes, I went to your workshop last week too. It was awesome too. It's like, it's not just a writing workshop too. It's actually exercises too. So what inspired you to think outside the box too? And let's make it like writers, make it like actual like interactive kind of program.
Right, exactly. That's what my hope is. It's not just for writers. I mean, really, we're all writers. We're all storytellers. And so how do we tell stories most effectively? Some people tell the stories verbally. They're really sharp. They're able to tell their stories bang, bang, bang. Some people need to get it on paper. It's just everyone has a different kind of skill set. But in the end, we all need to tell stories. We tell them on Facebook. We tell, you have to sell your project to your boss at work. How do you do that? Through emotion. And so storytelling is a key skill for every single person. And yet we don't learn it in school. We learn really boring storytelling, but we don't learn how to make it fascinating. How to use, how to discern what is a sharp detail that will make people lean in versus, kind of a flat detail in your story that, okay, that didn't pop for me. How do you make things pop? So to me, that's super fascinating. And, my next workshop actually is kind of similar in that it's useful to anybody because it's about body language. And for my master's, for my MFA, we had to do, of course, a critical thesis where you have a large, almost a novel length piece of work. But we also had to do a critical thesis. And I did my critical thesis on body language, because it's something I've just always been fascinated in. And I love watching people and I like reading them. But was I doing it accurately? We always think, oh, I saw that. But, really, did he lean into her? Did that mean something? Or, my friend had her leg out of the car soon as we stopped in front of her house. What does that mean? Does she not like me? Like, people they misinterpret body language all the time. And so I really wanted to research the science behind it. And so I studied all, every book I could find, every FBI expert who's ever written about body language. And then I looked at both, I looked at fiction to see, well, who is doing this well? And who is, actually showing what people do when they have a sense of power. What are people actually doing when they feel a sense of low power? And what about when they feel uncomfortable? And if you look, so they're not feeling low power, but they're just kind of like nervous. So what's that all about? And what I found in all of my research is that it gave me so much compassion for people, because we all have little things that we do. And now when I see it, I think, oh, they're a little bit uncomfortable. I'm going to do something. And so I can help make people more comfortable when I notice things. Like, for example, one of the things that we do as humans, we do what's called pacifying gestures. So everybody has base pacifying gestures. And that just means like we'll touch our face, or we rub our nose, or we adjust our glasses, or we rub our hands together, or we rub our legs, or we some people even cross their legs and uncross their legs. So there are pacifying gestures that we find soothing. And when we get nervous or uncomfortable, we do them with greater frequency. Or if we're trying not to appear nervous, our arms and feet become stiff. And so FBI experts will say that the feet are the truth tellers of the body, which I found so fascinating, because who looks at feet? We think we look at people's faces, right?
Exactly. I'm loving this story that I never really thought about this myself too, and like body language too, because I'm
right. What do you do?
I do acting and I do like poetry too, and I haven't performed in a while too because of the pandemic. But listen to this stuff too. I'm like, oh man, I do all this kind of stuff. So I don't even think
what's your big, like, what do you think your pacifying gesture is? Like, what's your big habit?
My face too. Touching my face. Like, I don't know if it's like you said, it's probably like a nervous like.
Do you like stroke are you like a chin stroker, or like do you like
just touch my face, like touch my chin mostly, or touch my
a lot of guys do the chin. You know what's so gross is for a long time I was doing my nose, like like stroking like from the top of my nose like down, so it kind of almost looks like you're picking your nose. And my kids, of course, teenagers, they're definitely like, they will catch you doing anything. Yep. So they look at me like stroking my nose, and I'm like, Mom, you're picking your nose. I'm gonna swear I'm not picking my nose. I'm just like, and they'd be like, well, why would you be nervous? And I'm like, I'm not. I'm just like, feeling anxious now. So I gotta, I'll do it more often. And it will be like, you're not anxious with the person. You might just even have an anxious thought, like, oh God, I'm going to be late for that thing. Or, and so then you stroke your nose without even noticing. So things like that are, I find fascinating what people do automatically. We don't even know we're doing it.
This is all great stuff too. Like, so what else would you add to your teaching, or else would you like to add to your like workshops that you want to like transition to or add to your repertoire?
Well, I do teach a teen novel writing workshop too, which I love. And right now I keep those small because I feel like the connection to the kids is so important to me. And makes me feel it gives me a lot of joy to connect with my teen students and to really help them with their work. And if I have too many students, then I can't give them that individual attention that they need. I feel that especially when you're teaching teens, the very first thing you've got to do is open the door. And the only way to open that door is through connecting with them, to show that you really appreciate them. And so I make sure I do that even when I get brought in for to schools and I have like 200 or 500 kids. It's a little harder, but even in something like that, as they're coming in, I don't stand up at the stage ever. I stand by where they're walking in and greet them and say hi. And then as more and more are coming in, I walk around and I ask them questions about what they like. And by the time my talk has started, I've met 50 kids at least and shown them like, I see you. And as a result, when I teach, even when I have a giant group of teens, my hope is that they know that I see them as important people, every single one of them, and that I care, about them. And so I think that that's the trick for teaching anything. So when I teach the novel writing workshop, by the end, we create these bound books. So for me, if there are any parents out there or any teachers, there's this great website called Scribblet, and you can, for actually not a terribly expensive price, you can print out novellas that your kids write, and they get this incredible feeling of this bound book that they made, that you just know that they'll treasure forever. It will go with them as they move from house to house. This is us, my husband and I and our kids. We have moved so many times because his work brings us back and forth between LA and New York, and our poor kids. But we have to gather all of our stuff, and those kind of things are the things that we move with.
Definitely. I'm definitely inspired by this talk now. Definitely. So, what are you working on now in terms of your own writing too, but outside of the class and workshops? What are other?
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, I'm writing. I'm just finishing one book, and I'm doing the prep work for a second. So the one that I'm nearly done with is it's a middle grade horror. So it's really for kids like 9 till 12. I try not to make it too scary, but it's about a girl who wants to make horror movies when she grows up, and she has a pretty horrific life. Has an abusive stepfather, and she's very scared. So she's scared, and it's the summer, and her best friend has gone away, so she's very lonely. And in this town, it's a kind of magical town, and the woods are magic, and she decides to make a wish on the night that wishes are granted. And she's not, the problem is she's not quite prepared for what comes. So that is, that's been such a fun book to write, and very scary. And it very much appeals to my younger self, who loved to scare everybody. And I used to hide around corners and terrify everyone. It was my favorite thing. So this book, that part of this book really comes from me. And I'm also, the prep work I'm doing is for a thriller set on a cul-de-sac in Los Angeles. And I believe it's going to be a YA thriller, but it might be an adult thriller, because I kind of want to go into the heads of all the people on this cul-de-sac. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. I think that we'll see. I'm really proud of this book for kids, because it's scary, but I think I'm skating the line where it's scary, but it's like that yummy kind of scary that kids
like
love.
Goosebumps, kind of like around that.
A little scarier than Goosebumps, but
Yeah.
it draws upon the fears that all kids have. I mean, I used to wake up in the middle of the night and be so sure there was a killer under my bed with a knife. I was so sure. And of course, you're terrified because you're stuck on the bed then. And you think, well, if I get off of my bed, the killer under the bed will slice my Achilles tendons. And so I have to jump far off the bed. And if I put my head down, of course, it's going to cut off my head. Like, you can't just peek, because that would be disastrous. So you basically have to get it, like crouch on your bed and like take a super jump far away to avoid any like killer with a knife. And then I'd like flatten myself on the floor to look under the bed. And of course there was no killer under my bed, just like some, dust bunnies. Then I'd be like, the killer's not under the bed, but he's got to be in the closet. So, I would just terrify myself in the middle of the night. And then, of course, the closet was clear. But the hallway outside my, because I had this this bedroom in the basement. And actually that's similar to this book with this girl who's terrified too, because she has a bedroom in the basement, and it's like this dungeon, and she's so sure there's she's gonna die. So I tried to bring in all those kid fears that kids legitimately have, and they wake up from, and they feel silly and they can't talk about it, even like they're 12. And and I think, I don't know if kids, I think if you've had trauma, there's even more fear around all that kind of stuff. But then, of course, every kid is afraid of the woods. Even I was afraid of the woods, and I grew up in the woods. Because I grew up in northern Canada.
Your stories too, you don't even realize you just like hear stories, and you're like, oh, maybe if I go in there, something will happen. It's like it's that good fear. Sometimes it's like that good fear. It's like you go for that thrill.
Right. Yeah. And some people, we all vary in terms of what is exciting. I was the kid who was like, okay, we're going to sneak into the woods. And literally I remember I took my best friend and we went way into the woods where there were these train tracks that nobody used. But I tied up her arms. Put her on the on the train tracks. She agreed to having her arms tied, just to be clear. I'm not a psycho. So it was part of our play. So she's like, help me. And then I would pretend like I was the hero, and I would run, I'll help you. And I would rescue her. Let's run. The bad guy's coming. And so that's what we spent our childhood doing, creating terrifying possibilities. And nowadays probably kids would video record themselves, but we just did it.
Take it to a TikTok viral video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what final question, what kind of advice do you have for different writers who say they're like a teenager or YA or adult? What kind of advice you have for those different demographics?
Well, there's a couple. Honestly, I think that my teen novelists are unbelievably amazing. I don't think it matters what age you are. You can write an incredible book. And one reason why I encourage novels for kids is that when you finish a giant project like that, even if it's 100 pages, the feeling of satisfaction is so great. Like you've really accomplished something. And I just think that you take these characters and you just put them in tough situations and see what they do. And then if they get out of a tough situation, throw another tough situation at them and see what they do. The biggest thing in any story is that something big happens and it makes your characters want something. So what are they pursuing? What do they want? And then in their pursuit of what they want, you throw obstacles in their way. It's not as hard as people think. The great thing about developing a fiction writing practice is that you can put some of your tough feelings into something dramatized and beautiful, and it empties out those difficult feelings in a much deeper way, I think, than even journal writing or anything else can. It is much more fulfilling because you've nailed the emotions of it, but you've transformed it through fiction. And in one way, the negative of journal writing is that what often happens is people do a list of complaints. My sister is driving me crazy. She did, she took my favorite Honest tea from the fridge and she drank it, and then she left half of a bottle with spit in it. And, they do this long complaining session. But if they put that in a scene and then had them, maybe they made them do what they wanted to do in real life, attack their sister, and then now they have the big you can create a real dramatic scene, and it really is quite satisfying. And I think that they can get over, like anybody, adult, child, teen, can help process their difficulties through fiction in a much deeper way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's been really great hearing your story and all of this too. Definitely have to do this again. Have a part 2.
Oh, that's great. I would love to talk to you anytime.
So let me just let you plug your workshop, your Instagram, Facebook, all that, so people can find you, find your work, sign up for your workshop right now.
Oh, sure. Okay, so Instagram is Typing Thumbs, or the Busy Writer Workshop, and Facebook, you can just go to Kim Purcell, and you can sign up for the Body Language Workshop on next Thursday, the 25th. It's at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you're a mom, you can go to bookyaya.com and just search Kim Purcell, and you can sign up for any class that suits you, or you can sign up for all of them. Those are the main things right now. And of course, you can go to Amazon and or any bookstore and buy my books if you want. So that's it.
All right. Thank you, Kim, for coming on. And thank you guys for listening out there. So make sure to retune in to YouTube, Countless Vlogcast. Also follow Kim Purcell on our Facebook, Instagram, all that. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Kim, for coming on.
All right. Thanks a lot.